Greetings, adventurers. I'm Dave Makes Noises. Welcome to MrRipper, and it's time to break out your dunce caps because today we're asking the community, what is the dumbest thing you've seen a player do? I had a natural trap where snow crust hit a cleft in the rocks. The party's combined weight caused the crust to break. Cue deck saves. Only the barbarian succeeds. Everyone else is now stuck down in the cleft in various stages of restrained due to pinned limbs and wedged bodies. The party calls up to the barbarian. Toss down your rope! Barbarian player checks their equipment list.
Bad news, guys. No rope. All I could afford after my axe was flint and steel, plus a tinderbox.
Everyone groans, but the barbarian springs into action, searching up some nearby saplings, cutting them and running back to the party. Everyone is waiting for him to reach down to help the closest ally out. Instead, the barbarian heroically pulls out his flint and steel, lighting the saplings on fire and tossing them down into the cleft. We all sat stunned for a moment, and then the player says,
"Didn't you say it was dark?"
This happened a few years ago. I was playing a sorcerer. We head into our first dungeon and come across a trapped corridor. Inside it, there were a bunch of hard-to-spot pressure plates. If you stepped on one of the dragon statues, the wall would start breathing fire. We found out the hard way. The party decided to break the statue before going in to avoid getting torched. We do so, and the DM describes how the flammable mixture fueling the trap falls from the statues to the ground. Fumes start rising from the liquid. Enter 500 IQ me. If the pressure plates trigger while we're going through, we're going to be surrounded by the fire, so I'm better setting it off before going in.
Are you sure about that? It's a narrow space and you are underground.
I mean, it's gonna burn anyway. Better now than later. I take a couple steps back and cast a fire spell inside the tunnel. DM has me roll a reflex save twice. Fail both. I get hit by both the fragments of the statues and the blast of the explosion. DM rolls for damage, sighs, and asks me if I want to describe my corpse. That's something we always do.
We were behind the corner, right? We had no reason to be close to him after all.
Let's say you were. There was a dragon in the water. Hadn't done anything bad as far as we knew, so my warlock used her packed feet to stick her head in the water and talk to the dragon. My DM was kind and/or had bigger plans for it, so nothing bad happened. Realized a few weeks later when Googling 5th edition dragons that what I did was a horrible idea. We were in a haunted castle. Nearly every room had enemies or traps in it. The castle was cursed so that anyone who died would have their souls trapped within it. We had only cleared about a third of the castle so far, and were busy discussing something we had found. Two players were bored and decided they would walk all the way to the end of the corridor we were in and go into a room. Surprise, the room was full of enemies. The enemies instantly paralyzed them since they had poor wisdom saves, and then proceeded to slaughter them before the rest of the party could reach the room they were in. They had to play NPCs for like a dozen sessions before we found a way to break the curse and free their souls. In a dungeon, one of the party members, the barbarian, raced ahead and opened every single door, releasing many undead that the party now had to fight off all at once. As a DM, I thought it was funny. The rest of the party wasn't as amused, though. Back in 2nd edition, we were sneaking through a Drow stronghold, but after completing our objective, we were cut off from escape. After capturing the captain of the guard under aggressive interrogation, he revealed that there was a hidden escape route inside a well located in the small chamber that connected the rooms of the stronghold's leaders, himself, their archmage, and their high priestess. We bypassed the traps and alarms leading in, where the leader said,
"Each of you cover a door, and I'll lower the rope."
The halfling rogue said,
"You mean this door?"
He opened the door to the high priestess's room, who happened to be with her lover, a lower-level mage. The ensuing battle alerted the archmage, who then gated in a powerful demon. After 3 rounds, the rogue and druid were dead, and the leader called a retreat down the well. I jumped with the druid, and the mage nearly died in the fall. Sadly, the leader grabbed the halfling's corpse. DM here. This is an actual back and forth I had during an online campaign that I ran for over a year. After defeating the big bad guy, you see the altar still beaming light into the air with an intense radiation of heat.
"I would like to do a religion check, as I am a paladin. I want to determine if this beam can be fatal."
Rolls religion check. You know this is a beam of energy. It can be fatal to any organism that walks into it, It's safe to say the bad guy was using it to sacrifice his slaves. I stick my sword into the beam. Your sword melts as you place it into the beam. The radiating heat causes a feeling like a sunburn all over you. Player silently thinks to himself while party debates what to do. I stick my arm into the beam. What? Your arm melts off at the shoulder. What? Oh no. DM. Surprised Pikachu face. This guy in a game I'm in is playing a paladin. The first time he used Smite was 3 months into us playing together. I honestly thought he was a poorly built bard until that moment. In the first campaign I've ever played, we had a cleric who had spiritual weapon and yet never used it. Nobody could figure out why. I think the only time it got used was when the DM took over their PC after they couldn't make a session. But to be fair, she wasn't enjoying playing her cleric and has switched to a shadow magic sorcerer for the second half of the campaign. During first session we had after she switched, she really got into the class. I think maybe some people forget what their job can do if it has too much going on or if it's just something they aren't enjoying. Seen this a few times. If you do X, your character will die. My character does X. Are you sure? They will just die. Yeah, they do. Okay. Your character dies. Surprised Pikachu face. X has ranged from jumping into a lava pit to trying to attack a god. I don't know what goes through the heads of some players. There was this really stupid person I played with, me, who was playing a level 2 Warlock and went through a hallway that put him back on the other side of the hallway. His first reaction after doing this was to cast Eldritch Blast on himself. It dealt 10 damage, and he failed all 3 death saving throws. My brother tried to drown a water elemental. My sister's druid was invited to a fancy dinner party. Her clothes were not classy enough for the event, so the servers let her borrow a dress. At the end of the night, they asked for the dress back, but she wanted to keep it. While the rest of us were trying to negotiate a price for the dress, she decided to pee in it. Surprised they didn't let her keep it after that. While the party was sailing through the intermediary plane of ooze, the swamps between the elemental planes of earth and water, the cleric decided to relax during his shift on watch by casting water walking, stripping off, and going for a jog on the water. The rest of us were alerted to danger by his surprised yelp at being dragged beneath the mud by a tentacle monster. Imagine that. The place where we have been constantly under threat from hags and a dragon, as well as warring tribes of Sawagan and several hungry hydra, is unsafe? Dangerous even? Anyway, his negative constitution mod meant he started to drown immediately, in addition to getting KO'd by the creature that grabbed him. I almost didn't cast Revivify when we dragged him on board, but we had already gone to a lot of trouble earlier. We had to kick him to death in the plane of fire so that he could be reincarnated in a body with a respectable lifespan, sunk costs, and all that. LG Paladin decided he was going to rob a blacksmith for full plate in a major city. Next door was a guard barracks. It was the middle of the day. He was level 3. His justification? I need it more. The gods will back me up. I made it clear they would not. This chain of events led to the death of the campaign when he was baffled at being killed after murdering the smith and several guards. Watch one player be convinced by another player that if he jumped down a dragon's mouth and into its belly that it would be easier to hit since its AC would be lower on the inside. No, that wasn't actually the case. He was nearly killed, and it was hilarious. My players decided to steal drugs from the Mafia boss in plain sight, then tried to sell them to him right after. Didn't want them killed yet, so I decided to have them restrained and kicked out for being idiots. Rolled for the Mafia boss to actually be kind of amused by it. Aarakocra player was flying over the ocean while wearing armor. They decided to take a quick dive into the water to see what was under the water. The party was trying to rescue some nobles from an orc group. They only had enough to pay the ransom for one of them at the time, so they planned to pay the ransom for one of the nobles and come back later for the other. They said, we'll take this one, keep that one. The orc leader didn't say anything. He just gave them the one they paid for, then sliced the other one in half so he could have roast noble for dinner that night. We were in a dungeon, a literal dungeon in this case, looking for someone to free from a cell. We found the cell, and one person goes up to it, triggering a trap in the ceiling that dropped a noose down to strangle them. They got free after taking some damage. We started talking, and the same person went to open the door again, triggering the trap again. They thought it wouldn't go off again after the first time, despite it being magic. Here's where it gets good. While we were talking about how to bypass the trap, a different player walked over there with a chair to stand on, for some reason not expecting the trap to go off again, and strangle them. My player was a level 8 barbarian then. I had this encounter where they had to cross a battlefield, avoiding stronger enemies and random siege weapon impacts.
Does our catapult's range reach the end of the battlefield?
Yeah, why?
I climb on the catapult and rage, then slash the rope.
You what now? Are you sure?
I have 100 hit points and I'm resistant to bludgeoning damage. Let's do this.
Me nervously Googling a catapult's projectile height and speed. Roll 20d6. Okay, you are now at quarter health, you're 1,000 feet away from your party, you're prone, and you're surrounded by enemies.
Oh no.
Hello, my sweet little apple turnovers of unyielding cosmic interconnectivity, and thank you for expanding that delightful and infinite consciousness of yours in our direction, and for doing so until the very end of this video. If you have felt the tingle of your precious brain cells dying before your very eyes in a tabletop gaming scenario, and would like to share this experience with the community, you may do so in the comments section below. And if you've got another story of tabletop gaming shenanigans, we'd love to hear it over at our official subreddit, r/MrRipper. If you're a new or returning player or DM and you're looking for a group to play with, we got your bases covered over at Mr. Ripper's Group Finder, a Discord server we've purpose-built to help you find a group. I hope this week that you get ahead on your projects so you can make some time for yourself to follow. If you want some more of this mojo, you're welcome to follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Dave Makes Noises. Once again, I have been Dave. Thank you for stopping by for a rip. Please sub for Nat 20s. Ding that dong, you old ding dong, and we'll see you next time.